The family wanted me to play the part of the tragic hero in their twisted story. I refused. I walked away and dove headfirst into the real world, reinventing myself as a nobody with bleach blonde hair, just another punk living day to day. Then one night, I stumbled upon the city's richest heiress after she'd run away from home. I brought her back to my place, having no idea who she was. I treated her like some wannabe punk princess, lecturing her and ordering her around. The moment I learned the truth, I panicked and drove her back downtown that very night, leaving her on a bench for her family to find and pretending the whole thing never happened. I figured our lives would never cross again. But then, a while later, I picked a fight with the wrong rich kid. Just as I was about to skip town, a fleet of black SUVs surrounded me on a deserted street. The door of the lead car opened, and there she was, my former house guest, her eyes filled with a familiar, heartbreaking disappointment. Are you going to leave me again? I was supposed to be the tragic hero, not the kind star-crossed with a lover, but the kind bled dry by a family of vampires. I'm a second son. My birth coincided with my father losing his job at the steel mill and the bank foreclosing on our house. I was the unplanned child, the sinner they blamed for their misfortune. They hated me for it. The only warmth I ever knew came in fleeting moments from my grandparents. The rest was a cold, bitter darkness. I ate leftovers, worked like a dog, and endured the worst of the beatings. My older brother, Devin, was the golden child, showered with every scrap of affection. He failed so many classes he ended up in my grade. After graduation, despite my SAT scores being good enough for a state university, I was denied the chance to go. Instead, I was forced to get a job at a factory to pay for Devin's community college tuition. My parents took every dollar I earned. According to the original script of my life, the next act was Devin's wedding. My mother would call again and again, demanding I come up with the money for it. Distracted and exhausted, I'd have an accident at the factory. A machine would crush my hand, turning it to pulp. I was supposed to die with the taste of my mother's sour porridge in my mouth, the last thing she fed me, insisting I not be wasteful. The fever for an infection would have made me delirious, but I'd still clearly remember the undisguised joy on her face as she pulled the $500,000 compensation check from under my pillow. Leo, honey, this is just what we need for your brother's wedding. Mom's just gonna borrow it. That was the price of my hand, the money that was supposed to keep me alive. 3 days later, I was supposed to die alone in my cheap apartment with no one to even give me a final sip of water. But now I was awake. Why should I endure a tragedy that wasn't my fault? Why would I ever go back and play the part of the suffering hero? I packed a bag, took the $800 I'd secretly saved from a summer job, and bought a one-way bus ticket to Pittsburgh. I became a machinist apprentice, and I became a punk. In my new world, everyone was a character, a smooth talker with a story. It took me a year, but I fit right in, right down to the bleach blonde hair. I worked too hard, which made me stand out from the rest of the guys, but I knew their secret. They could always call home for cash. I couldn't. If I didn't hustle, I wouldn't even survive. By day, I was an apprentice at the shop, earning a meager $1,500 a month. By night, I was the coolest guy on the block, riding a beat-up, modified motorcycle through the city streets. On payday, I'd hang out at pool halls and dive bars, occasionally flirting with some of the local punk girls. When I was broke, I'd just wander the streets aimlessly. Sometimes, I'd sneak a few vegetables from my neighbor's garden to fill my stomach. The other tenants learned to give me a wide berth when they saw me coming, pulling their kids close and whispering loud enough for me to hear. See that? If you don't study hard, you'll end up just like that guy with the yellow hair. Give me a break. I did study hard, and I still ended up with bleached hair. In my world, if you're at the bottom, you either look tough or you get eaten alive. Christmas was approaching, and the whole city was buzzing with festive energy. I checked my bank account after my paycheck and a tiny holiday bonus. I had $950 to my name. I was dead broke. I didn't even feel like celebrating. The old woman next door, Mrs. Alcott, took pity on me. She brought me bags of vegetables and fruit from her garden. Seeing how thin my jacket was, she gave me an old winter coat her grandson had outgrown. I thanked her profusely. She just waved it off. Don't mention it, dear. Just next time you want some kale, please just ask. Don't go yanking it out by the roots. You're ruining the whole patch. My face burned with shame as I remembered the trail of destruction in her garden. I nodded quickly, promising I would. I'd have to find a new garden to raid. Mrs. Alcott also hooked me up with a part-time gig. Her nephew was a chef at one of the biggest hotels downtown, and they were desperate for extra help during the holiday rush. She got me a job as a server. On my third day, the hotel was hosting the annual holiday gala for Vance Industries, the city's biggest corporation. Word was the CEO, Mr. Vance, had another record-breaking year, and the party was a 3-day affair. Every server was promised a $500 tip. To me, that was a fortune. I nodded along as the banquet captain gave his instructions, not really hearing a word. As a temp, I normally wouldn't be allowed to work a high-profile event like this, but they were so short-staffed the last spot fell to me. You had to hand it to him. The man knew how to throw a party. The ballroom was massive, packed to the gills. I almost couldn't find my assigned section. The guests were all upper crust, so polite that sometimes they'd take the platters right from my hands and serve themselves. All in all, it was a pretty easy gig. The best part was snagging leftover gourmet food after the event ended. Once we cleaned up, we were free to go. The job was so chill I was already thinking about quitting the machine shop to become a full-time waiter. Just as I was daydreaming about my new career path, a commotion erupted at the ballroom entrance. A group of men in black suits stormed in, led by a stunningly beautiful woman. "Look, it's Mrs. Vance," someone whispered. The room filled with murmurs. The massive screen behind the stage, which had been showing a corporate holiday message, suddenly flickered to life with a picture of a paternity test. Mr. Vance, who had been giving a speech, saw it and his face went pale. The scene descended into chaos. He and the woman's bodyguards started shoving each other. It turned out Mr. Vance had a mistress and a secret child. I was engrossed in the drama when the banquet captain slapped me on the back of the head. "They're clearing the room. What are you standing around for? Let's go." I glanced around. Sure enough, more men in black were ushering everyone out. As I scrambled away in the confusion, I pretended to stumble and kicked the captain squarely in the back. What did he think? He could just hit me and get away with it? I'd had enough of being pushed around at home. I wasn't going to take it from some power-tripping middle manager. I played dumb and hurried out, grabbing a jumbo shrimp from a platter on my way. After things calmed down, I grabbed my cash for the day and bolted. I wasn't sticking around for the captain to check the security footage. "Thank you, Mr. Vance. If it weren't for your family drama, we wouldn't have gotten paid a fat discretion bonus on top of our wages." I worked 5 days, 2 of them for the Vance Gala, and walked away with an extra $3,000 in my pocket. That was 2 months' salary from the shop. I went home, slept like a king, and spent the next day buying a mountain of groceries and snacks for the holidays. I brought a couple of bags over to Mrs. Alcott as a thank you for the job, then hid the rest of my haul. It was all the stuff I could never afford as a kid, first because my parents favored my brother and now because I was too broke. I had to hide it or the guys I hung out with would devour it in one sitting. I was cruising down the street on my beat-up motorcycle, the winter wind whipping through my bleached hair, on New Year's Eve. The city was ablaze with lights and cheer. Everyone was celebrating. I was the only one who felt like an outsider. "Yo, Leo," one of the guys from the pool hall waved me over from the corner. "We're getting a game going tonight. You in?" I shook my head and patted my empty pockets. "Nah, I'm broke. I'll just watch." He rolled his eyes. "Don't play with me. Did you just get paid from that hotel gig?" I shot back a look. That little bit of cash wouldn't even buy a pack of smokes. I was lying, of course. If they knew I had money, they'd all be asking to borrow some. Those jerks never paid anyone back, always pulling the "bro, you gotta help me out" card. I killed time wandering the streets until after midnight. What was the point of celebrating New Year's alone? Might as well watch other people's fireworks. That's when I saw a shadow move in a nearby alley. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice sharp. No answer. I took a few steps closer and heard a faint sob. In the dim glow of a street light, I saw a girl in a thin party dress huddled against a brick wall, shivering violently. "Hey, you okay?" I knelt. The girl looked up, revealing a small, delicate face. It was smeared with mascara, but I could tell she was a beauty. "Go away," she snapped, glaring at me like a cornered cat. I couldn't help but chuckle. "Wow, feisty, huh? It's freezing out here. What are you doing, feeding the rats?" "None of your business." She hugged her knees and tried to shrink further into the wall. I noticed she was only wearing one high-heeled shoe. Her other foot was bare, and her ankle was bleeding. "Fight with your parents?" I asked gently. She didn't answer, but fresh tears welled in her eyes. I sighed, shrugging off my leather jacket and tossing it to her. Put this on. You'll freeze to death. She hesitated for a moment before wrapping the jacket around her shoulders. Want to come over my place for a bit? Warm up? I gestured toward my apartment building down the street. Don't worry, I'm not a creep. She eyed me suspiciously. You have bleached hair. My parents told me not to talk to guys like you. What's wrong with my hair? Did my hair personally offend you? I rolled my eyes. Suit yourself. Freeze out here for all I care. I turned and started to walk away. After about 20 yards, I heard the sound of unsteady footsteps behind me. A small smile crept onto my face. Another runaway kid. My apartment was tiny, but it was clean and, more importantly, warm. The girl stood hesitantly in the doorway, her eyes darting around the room suspiciously. You coming in, or are you going to stand there like a gargoyle all night? I flicked on the small space heater. Relax. You're not my type. She finally shuffled inside, perching on the edge of the chair farthest from me. Let me see your foot. I pulled out a first aid kit. You don't have to. Geez, you're stubborn. I grabbed her ankle, ignoring her protests. This is already getting infected. If you don't clean it, you'll have to get it amputated tomorrow. I was exaggerating. It was just a small cut. She winced in pain, but didn't pull away this time. As I cleaned the cut, I noticed her skin was soft and pale, not like the tough streetwise girls I usually saw around. What's your name? I asked, dabbing the wound with antiseptic. Anya. How old? 20. I snorted. Bullshit. You're 16, 17 at most. She glared at me. None of your business. After bandaging her foot, I dug out a pair of new socks I'd been saving. Here, these are new. Put 'em on so you don't catch cold. She took the socks and asked quietly, Why are you helping me? I shrugged. Guess I'm just a nice guy? Can't stand to see a pretty girl cry. The truth was, she reminded me of myself. The lonely kid who used to hide in corners and cry after being rejected by his own family. You hungry? I asked, opening the fridge and looking back at Anya, who was now curled up on my small sofa. She nodded. Good. Me too. I pulled out a box of spaghetti and a package of hot dogs. It was New Year's after all. I gritted my teeth and decided to splurge. As I placed a steaming bowl of pasta topped with sliced hot dogs in front of her, she looked at it and asked timidly, This is what you eat for a holiday? I thought she was looking down on my cooking. What? Got a problem with it? If you don't want it, don't eat it. She quickly shook her head and grabbed the bowl, devouring the food like she hadn't eaten in days. Slow down. Nobody's going to steal it from you, I said, handing her a can of Coke. After she finished, her defenses seemed to melt away. Thank you, she said softly. I waved it off. It's nothing. I'll take you home tomorrow. I'm not going back, she said, her voice suddenly sharp with panic. Not going back. I took a drag from my cigarette and eyed her. So what's your plan? Sleeping on the street? Anya bit her lip, her eyes turning red again. I hated it when girls cried. I ran a hand through my hair in frustration. Fine, you can stay here for now. But let's get one thing straight. You'll pay your half of the rent and utilities. You can pay me back when you get some money. Her eyes lit up. Really? Cross my heart. I flicked some ash into a can. But you've got to pull your weight around here. Doing what? Laundry, cooking, cleaning, I said, ticking them off on my fingers. And just like that, I had a new roommate. She took my bed, and I was relegated to the couch. Her solemn promise to pay me back double was the only reason I agreed. With her around, my holiday vacation started to feel like a full-time job. Every morning, Anya would poke her head out from under the covers and wake me up, signaling that it was time for me to make breakfast. It was unbelievable. The girl who was supposed to do the cooking and cleaning was completely useless. She managed to mess up everything she tried, then would just stare at me with those big, teary, pleading eyes until I took over. She was like a spoiled princess who'd reached the age of 18 without learning how to do a single thing for herself. Thanks to Anya's presence, the neighbors all assumed I had a girlfriend. The gossip started immediately. Is that blonde kid crazy? He's so poor he can barely feed himself, and now he's trying to support a girlfriend. I just shot them a bored look and led Anya off to the pool hall. She started imitating me, covering her arms in temporary tattoos. Real tattoos were too expensive. Even mine were fake, holding a shopping bag with the dress and underwear I just bought for her. I felt a pang of regret. That was $300 down the drain. Listen, Anya, I said, trying to sound serious. The new year is starting. You need to find a job and pay me back, you hear me? Anya just turned and gave me a sweet, grateful smile. I had to admit, with her looks, putting her in a pretty dress made me the king of the pool hall. None of the other guys' girlfriends could hold a candle to her beauty or her natural elegance. So Anya and I began our strange co-ed life. And while she was hopeless at first, she was a quick learner. She eventually figured out how to do most chores, except for cooking. In early January, everyone was busy visiting relatives. In past years, I'd just hole up in a gaming cafe for days on end. But this year I had Anya. When I got bored, I'd have her pretend to be my girlfriend and take her to the pool hall or arcade to show her off. This came at a price. I had to share half of my secret stash of snacks with her and waive her food expenses. Watching my precious snack supply dwindle made me want to cry. I got my revenge by drawing turtles on her face with a marker while she slept. The shrieks she let out from the bathroom the next morning nearly shattered the light bulb in my apartment. Anya was easy to bully, surprisingly gentle and soft-spoken for a runaway. Even when she was mad, it sounded more like she was pouting. Sometimes she'd just curl up in a corner and sulk, tears streaming down her face like it was nothing. It was a headache, but I'd usually give in and appease her, otherwise she'd just keep crying. Despite all that, taking her out became the best part of my day. She'd cheer for me when I played pool, her eyes sparkling whenever I won. At the arcade, she'd gasp with excitement whenever I pulled off a cool combo in a fighting game. Her admiration was a huge ego boost. Growing up, no one besides a few teachers had ever given me that kind of validation. Time flew by. On the night of the city's annual Light Up Night Festival, I took Anya downtown to see the displays. She wore a cheap but cute wool coat we'd found on a clearance rack. As we left, the neighbors couldn't help but comment on how pretty she looked. That blonde kid, I don't know how he got so lucky. I proudly held my head high, kicking my motorcycle to life. Hop on, I'm taking you to see the lights. The downtown square was packed with people, a sea of dazzling lights and festive decorations. Anya was like an excited little kid, pulling me through the crowd. Leo, look at that giant snowman light display. It's amazing, she yelled, her eyes shining. Oh my, so childish, but I still bought her a small light-up wand. She was happier than I had ever seen her, bouncing through the crowd with her new toy. She was way more cultured than me. At the riddle booths, she won a ton of prizes. Looking at our pile of winnings, I seriously considered setting up a stall to sell them, but the look she gave me made me drop the idea. Fine, we didn't have to make a profit off everything. Life continued in this strangely comfortable rhythm for a few more weeks. The holiday slowdown ended, and the factories started ramping up again. I had to go back to the machine shop, back to being an apprentice. Anya stayed in the apartment, waiting for me to get home from work each day. I kept telling her to get a job, but she always had an excuse. The one good thing was that she had finally learned to cook a few simple dishes. It was nice to come home covered in grease and grime to a hot meal. Seeing my bank account not draining quite so fast also lifted my spirits. If we cut back on going out, the money I'd saved could last until my next paycheck. Then one day during my lunch break, I overheard my boss and some of the senior machinists talking. The Vance girl, the heiress from the richest family in the city, was missing. It had been almost a month and her parents were frantic. I immediately grabbed my stool and sat down to listen in on the gossip. It wasn't surprising I hadn't heard. My old flip phone couldn't access the internet, and I couldn't afford a smartphone. The story had been all over the news for weeks. The articles conveniently left out the part about the illegitimate child. Money can buy silence, after all. Curious, I went over to ask my boss about it. He called me a caveman for not knowing the news and shoved his new Samsung smartphone in my face. I squinted at the screen, and my whole body went cold. The girl in the news photo, wearing a designer dress with a polite, reserved smile, was unmistakably Anya. The same girl who was currently living in my apartment, wearing clothes from a discount bin. The headline read, "Heiress Anya Vance missing since New Year's Eve." Holy! My hand trembled, and I nearly dropped my boss's phone. "What's wrong with you? See a ghost?" he asked, snatching his phone back. "No, nothing," I stammered, but my back was already drenched in cold sweat. Anya was the missing heiress. She was supposed to be a high school senior getting ready for college applications. It took me a long time to wrap my head around it. It all made sense now. She never seemed like a typical runaway. She was a bona fide super-rich heiress, and I had unknowingly kidnapped her and was now her roommate. Even though I hadn't laid a hand on her, her family wouldn't know that. If they found me, they'd skin me alive. For days, I couldn't eat or sleep. My work suffered. I almost had a serious accident at the shop, a grim echo of the fate I had originally escaped. Anya noticed something was wrong. She kept looking at me with those big, watery, questioning eyes. Anya, I began cautiously one evening. Do you miss your family? She was mending a tear in my work shirt, and at my question the needle jabbed her finger. Ouch! She popped her finger in her mouth, her eyes welling up. Ow, that hurts, she mumbled around her finger. Why? Why do you ask that all of a sudden? I stared at her hands. They were pale and delicate, hands meant for playing the piano, not for mending clothes. No reason. It's just, I chose my words carefully. You've been gone for a while. Your family must be worried. She shook her head, then looked at me with those tear-filled eyes. Are you trying to get rid of me? Seeing her on the verge of crying made my heart ache. In the end, I decided I had to send her home. She had parents who loved her, a real family. She was an heiress. She had no future with a broke punk like me. Her running away was just a phase, a temporary rebellion. So what if she had a new half-brother? It wouldn't change her life of luxury. Her parents had been looking for her for a month. They had to be sick with worry. The next day after work, I made up an excuse to cook a special dinner. I even splurged on takeout from a decent restaurant, 2 dishes I'd never be able to afford otherwise. I mixed a crushed sleeping pill into her portion. Anya's eyes lit up when she saw the feast. She hummed with satisfaction as she ate. The pill worked fast. Once her breathing was deep and even, I sprang into action. I found a designer dress and nice shoes she'd been wearing when I found her. After getting her dressed, I carried her out of the building and laid her gently on a bench in the main city square, a well-lit and public place. Then I used a pay phone to make an anonymous call to the police. It wasn't long before a fleet of black cars sped to the square. I watched from the shadows as a man and a woman who looked just like the photos in the news, her parents, rushed to her side. I stayed hidden until the cars disappeared into the night. After sending Anya back, my life returned to what it was before. The apartment suddenly felt cavernous and empty, so quiet I could hear my own breathing. I opened the last bag of my hoarded snacks, but they tasted like cardboard. Damn it! Stop being so pathetic, I muttered, throwing the bag in the trash. The next day at work, my boss saw my gloomy face and kicked my leg. What's up with you, Blondie? You look like your dog died. I forced a weak smile. Boss, I think I need to take a few days off. Take off. He stared at me. Don't tell me you got a girl pregnant. I didn't bother explaining. I just packed my tools and left. I fantasized that Anya would come back, but I was also terrified that her father would show up at my door, accusing me of ruining his daughter's reputation. What wealthy family would tolerate their daughter shacking up with a punk? Anya was probably furious with me for sending her back without her permission. Her family, terrified she'd run away again, would have surrounded her with bodyguards. Or maybe she had simply slipped back into her role as the privileged heiress, making up for lost time and forgetting all about me. The past month would just be a weird, insignificant blip in her life, leaving no trace. I moved. The fear that Mr. Vance would come after me was too much. You never know what rich people are capable of. I gave all the stuff I couldn't carry to Mrs. Alcott and moved to a cheaper, more rundown apartment on the other side of the city. I had also finally finished my apprenticeship. The old factory was too far away, so I found a new job as a full machinist, not just a helper. My salary jumped to $4,500 a month. The days bled into one another, and summer arrived. I finally saved up enough to buy my first smartphone, a Samsung. That's how I saw the news about Anya. She had aced her finals and was heading to a top university overseas. I took my buddies out and bought a round of beers to celebrate. I told them we were celebrating my new phone. That night, I got drunk for the first time in a long time. Another Christmas came and went. I sat in my empty apartment and ate a bowl of instant noodles by myself. I threw myself into my work, taking all the overtime shifts I could get. The factory had landed a huge contract and was operating through the holidays. I was exhausted, but the money was good. My supervisor clapped me on the shoulder and told me to keep studying up, that he saw potential in me. Good machinists were in demand, and the more you knew, the more you could earn. Holding a $6,000 paycheck felt heavy in my hands. I bought books on tool and die design and spent my nights at the local library, teaching myself how to use design software. The guys I used to hang with looked at me like I'd grown a second head. The next year, I was promoted to a junior supervisor. I started managing my own small-scale projects. My salary jumped to $7,000 a month plus bonuses. To celebrate, I took my closest work friends to a new trendy club downtown. The club was a kaleidoscope of flashing lights and pounding music. I wore a new button-down shirt, my hair dyed back to its natural black. I almost looked respectable. "Leo, man, you're killing it," my colleague Marcus said, raising his beer. "Supervisor in just 2 years? That's awesome." I took a drag from a cigarette and just smiled, raising my glass in a silent toast. Suddenly, a sneering voice cut through the noise. Well, look what we have here. Isn't that the little punk with the bleached hair? This place is really going downhill. They'll let anyone in now. What happens when he can't pay his tab?" I squinted through the haze and saw him. Oliver Montgomery, a notorious rich prick from a powerful local family. I crossed paths with him once before on a security gig for another spoiled rich kid. They had been beefing, and both sides hired a bunch of guys for a planned showdown. Thinking it was easy money, I had brought a few of my boys along. I never expected to see him here. "Oliver, my mistake. I'll get out of your way," I said, standing up and bowing my head slightly. I couldn't afford to fight him, but I could definitely run. He grabbed me by the collar. "Hey, Blondie, or I guess not anymore. Coming up in the world, are we spending money in places like this?" he sneered. "Weren't you just some street punk? When did you start pretending to be a gentleman?" His words were like a knife twisting in an old wound, but I kept a subservient smile plastered on my face. "My apologies for ruining your night, sir. I'm leaving right now." I tried to walk away, but Oliver blocked my path. "Hold on, finish this drink first," he said, holding up a glass. He then spat a thick glob of phlegm into it, stirred in some cigarette ash with his finger, and held it out to me. "Drink it, then crawl between my legs, and I'll let you go. Otherwise, you're leaving this place on a stretcher. Go to hell." The alcohol and a tidal wave of rage washed over me. I swung my fist as hard as I could, right into his smug face. Oliver, clearly not expecting me to fight back, staggered backward from the force of the punch. "Get him," he roared, clutching his bleeding nose. A dozen of his cronies immediately swarmed me. I knew my only chance was to take him down first. Fueled by booze and years of pent-up anger, I lunged at Oliver, tackling him to the ground and raining punches down on him. The raw, visceral feeling of my fist connecting with his face brought back all the feral energy of my street punk days. I didn't stop until the club's bouncers pulled me off him. As I came to my senses, I saw Oliver's bloody, swollen face and knew I was in deep trouble. I stumbled out of the club, and the cold night air sobered me up instantly. The Montgomery family had deep pockets and connections all over the city. My life, the one I had worked so hard to build, was over. I rushed back to my apartment and frantically started packing a bag. Damn it, I just made supervisor. I cursed under my breath, stuffing clothes into a backpack. In that moment of panic, for some reason, I thought of Anya. Cool you missed me. I never even got to tell her I was sorry. I wished I could see her one more time. I grabbed my bag and had just stepped out the door when I heard the roar of engines. A line of black SUVs turned onto my street, their headlights pinning me in place. It's over. I dropped my bag and ran, but it was obvious they were here for me. The lead vehicle screeched to a halt, cutting off my escape. The doors flew open, and several large men in black suits stepped out. Leo Thompson, the one in charge, asked, his voice cold and flat. I swallowed hard, backing away slowly, only to realize I was completely surrounded. Are you Oliver's guys?" My voice trembled. The men didn't answer. They simply stepped aside, creating a path. The door of the last SUV opened slowly. A pair of elegant high heels stepped onto the pavement, followed by long, slender legs and a graceful figure. When I saw her face, my mind went completely blank. Anya, 2 years. She was even more beautiful than I remembered. Her hair was styled in soft waves, her makeup was flawless, and she wore a designer dress that made her look like a true princess. But her eyes, still as big and expressive as ever, were looking at me with a familiar, wounded expression. "You're going to leave me again?" she asked, her voice choked with emotion. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. She bit her lip. "I've been looking for you for a long time." I managed a bitter laugh. "Looking for me? Why? I'm just a nobody." "Shut up. Her eyes reddened. Do you have any idea how angry I was? You drugged me. I looked down, ashamed. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it, she said, her voice rising. Do you know how scared I was when I woke up back at home? I thought I would never see you again. She suddenly lunged forward, her fists beating against my chest like a summer rain. You jerk. How could you just disappear? Why did you send me back? Do you have any idea how much I missed you? Her tears soaked through my shirt. I was speechless, standing there awkwardly as she let out all her frustration. Finally, Anya took a deep, shuddering breath and said, Come home with me. What? I said, Come home with me. She grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. You're not getting away this time. And just like that, I was kidnapped by Anya. She pushed me into one of the SUVs, and we drove directly to her family's mansion. Staring at the opulent marble floor foyer, I felt my knees go weak. Dad, Mom, this is Leo, the one I told you about, Anya announced, pulling me toward a man and woman sitting on a velvet couch, her parents. Mr. Vance looked me up and down, his eyes sharp and analytical. So, you're the one who ran off with my daughter? A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. Mr. and Mrs. Vance, I'm so sorry. I didn't know who she was. Anya stepped in front of me, shielding me from her father's glare. Dad, don't you dare scare him. Her voice was firm. He's not like the other guys. He understands me better than you do. Anya, sweetie, that's not what I meant, her father said, softening his tone. Then what did you mean? You were thinking he's just some factory worker, weren't you? Anya shot back. Don't even try to talk me out of it. He took care of me for a month with the little money he had, without even knowing who I was. I've already decided I'm going to spend the rest of my life with him. The air in the Vance family's living room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I stood under a massive crystal chandelier, feeling my cheap t-shirt shrink in the face of such overwhelming luxury. Anya was squeezing my hands so tight I could feel the sweat from her palm. That's ridiculous. You haven't even finished college, her father boomed, slamming his hand on the coffee table so hard the teacups rattled. Dad, I'm 20 years old. I have the right to choose who I love. Mrs. Vance sighed and gave me a complicated look. Young man, you do understand our family situation, don't you? I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. Ma'am, Mom, Anya cut me off. How many times do I have to explain this? He's different. He's genuinely good to me. She turned back to her parents. When he was eating instant noodles, he wouldn't even splurge on a hot dog for himself. He supported both of us on a $1,500 a month apprentice salary. I hung my head in embarrassment, feeling my toes curl inside my worn-out boots. My salary is $7,000 a month now, I muttered under my breath, plus bonuses. Mr. and Mrs. Vance exchanged a look. Her father chuckled humorlessly. 7,000? My daughter spends more than that on a single dress. Dad, Anya stomped her foot in frustration. I don't care about that. We have plenty of money. Mrs. Vance walked over and gently, but firmly pried her daughter's hand from mine. Anya, dear, why don't you go upstairs? Your father and I would like to speak with Leo alone. Anya looked at them suspiciously. You better not bully him. Don't worry, her father said with a wave of his hand. We just want to talk. After Anya reluctantly went upstairs, the temperature in the room dropped by 20 degrees. Mr. Vance gestured for me to sit while he poured himself a cup of tea. Leo, is it? He said, taking a slow sip. How much will it take for you to leave my daughter? I was stunned. I never thought a cliché from a bad TV movie would actually happen to me. Sir, I don't want your money, I said, forcing myself to sit up straight. Please don't insult me. Even as I said it, a part of my brain was screaming at me to take the money and run. We were from different worlds. This was the sensible way out. But my stupid pride wouldn't let me. Mr. Vance narrowed his eyes, as if trying to read my soul. You don't want money. Then what do you want? I took a deep breath. I know I'm not good enough for Anya. I know that no matter how hard I work, I'll never meet your standards. I looked him straight in the eye. So I'll leave. I'll leave Pittsburgh, and I'll never see her again. Mr. and Mrs. Vance stared at me, clearly surprised by my answer. Leo, you're going to leave me again? Anya's tearful voice echoed from the grand staircase. She was standing halfway down, her face already streaked with tears. You promised you wouldn't leave me again. She ran down the rest of the stairs and threw her arms around me. Suddenly, her father burst out laughing. His laughter filled the enormous room, leaving Anya and me completely bewildered. This is great, just great, he said, wiping a tear from the corner of his eye. Who said anything about you two having a breakup? Mrs. Vance was smiling too. Anya, honey, we're not a couple of tyrants from some old movie. We would never force you to separate. I stood there utterly confused, my brain struggling to catch up. Anya, however, was already beaming through her tears. Dad, you scared me to death. She turned to me, her face alight with excitement. Leo, he was just testing you. Oh, a test? I stammered. Mr. Vance stood up and clapped me on the shoulder. Son, my daughter has been coddled her whole life. It's not every day she finds someone who genuinely cares for her. He looked at me meaningfully. We have more than enough money in this family. What's rare is sincerity. It finally dawned on me that the whole scene had been an act. My God, they nearly gave me a heart attack. I thought my love story was over before it even began. I was already picturing the montage where I'd go off, become a billionaire through sheer grit, and return to win her back. Realistically, by the time I made my fortune, Anya's grandkids would be getting married. After the air was cleared, Mr. Vance proceeded to interrogate me, getting my entire life story. I felt completely exposed. They made me agree to one thing. I was to have no further contact with my biological family. I agreed without a moment's hesitation. The day I left, I had already decided never to return to that house of horrors. The days that followed felt like a dream. I learned that the paternity test scandal had been a fabrication, a smear campaign orchestrated by one of Mr. Vance's business rivals. He didn't object to my relationship with Anya. In fact, he offered me an opportunity. He also took care of the situation with Oliver Montgomery, ensuring I wouldn't face any repercussions. I politely declined his offer of a cushy job at Vance Industries, wanting to make it on my own. However, when he offered to be my first investor, I didn't refuse. With $3 million in seed money, I started my own machine shop. Anya, meanwhile, transferred to the best university in the state to finish her degree. On the day my factory opened, Anya skipped class to be there for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. She wore a custom-printed t-shirt with my company's new logo and stood on the red carpet, smiling brighter than the sun. Congratulations on a new business, Mr. Thompson, she teased, winking at me. My palms were sweating. Don't mess around. Everyone's watching, I whispered. What's there to be afraid of? She looped her arm through mine. My boyfriend is a business owner now. I couldn't be prouder. The factory slowly found its footing and began to grow. I was working around the clock, but I always made time for a video call with Anya every night. She constantly complained that I was working too hard, telling me the dark circles under my eyes were getting out of control. Leo, if you keep staying up this late, I'm going to come down there and be your personal supervisor, she'd threaten, pouting adorably on the screen. I'd laugh and promise her, Okay, I'm going to bed right now. After hanging up, I'd look at the mountain of order forms on my desk and get right back to work. I invested in injection molding machines and expanded our services. After 2 years of relentless work, we had opened an assembly line and could offer clients a complete on-a-stop manufacturing service. After graduating, Anya joined her father's company for a while before coming to work with me. Mr. Thompson, about this month's financial report, my CFO began, pushing his glasses up his nose. I didn't even look up from the blueprints I was drafting. Just send it to Mrs. Thompson. To prevent me from falling into the rich man with bad habits trope, Anya had also taken complete control of the company's finances. She paid me a monthly salary of just $5,000. But the CFO looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Thompson said to dock your allowance by $500 this month. My pen stopped moving. Again? Didn't she just dock it $300 last month? She said you were out entertaining clients until last week. I deflated instantly. Fine. The CFO tried to hide a smile as he left my office. I sighed and pulled out my phone, sending a text to Anya. Frowny face. Hey boss, have mercy. I was hoping to take the guys out for a beer this month. The message had barely sent when my office door swung open. Anya strode in, looking sharp and sophisticated in a power suit and heels. Well, does the CEO have a problem? She asked, raising an eyebrow. I immediately put on my best smile. Of course not. The boss is wise and brilliant. An excellent decision. She laughed and slapped a folder down on my desk. Here, a chance to redeem yourself. I opened it and saw it was a wedding proposal. My dad said you should be in charge of this project, she said, leaning close to my ear and whispering, "Do a good job, and I'll double your allowance." I stared at the proposal, my fingers trembling slightly. This. I stammered. Anya tilted her head, a mischievous glint in her eye. "What? Is the CEO unwilling to take the job?" "No." I shot up from my chair, nearly knocking it over. "I mean, is this for our wedding?" She giggled and pinched my cheek. "Who else would you be marrying?" I pulled her into my arms, burying my face in her hair, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Yes. Of course yes." I was so excited I could barely speak. "I'll start planning right away. I promise it will be the most perfect wedding ever." Anya snuggled against my chest, then looked up. "So, about my allowance?" "Double. It's double," I declared magnanimously. Her eyes curved into crescent moons. "Great. And just so you know, the wedding budget is capped at $3 million. "What?" I almost bit my tongue. "What can you even do with $3 million? Anya started ticking things off on her fingers. "The venue, the dress, the catering, the honeymoon." I cut her off. "No way. My wife's wedding can't be so modest. It has to be at least." Before I could finish, she stood on her toes and pressed a soft kiss to my lips. "Silly," she said, her cheeks flushed. "As long as I have you, that's all that matters." I was frozen in place, feeling like I was floating. "Well, it can't be too simple," I mumbled. "The dress, at least. That has to be custom-made, right?" Anya's eyes twinkled. "Okay, but you have to come with me for the fitting." "Deal. Deal," I said, puffing out my chest. In the weeks that followed, I spent my days running the factory and my nights poring over wedding plans. During one of our video calls, I told her mysteriously, "I have a huge surprise for you on our wedding day." "What is it?" she pressed, her curiosity piqued. "It wouldn't be a surprise if I told you," I said with a smug grin. She pouted. "Fine, don't tell me. By the way, you're coming with me to try on wedding dresses tomorrow." The next day, I stood outside a high-end bridal boutique in my best suit, my palms sweating with nerves. "Leo," I heard her voice and turned. The sight of her took my breath away. Anya was standing at the top of a spiral staircase, wearing a stunning white gown, smiling down at me. The sunlight streaming through the large windows enveloped her in a soft glow. She looked like a painting. Do you like it?" she asked, a little shyly. I opened my mouth, but my throat was tight. I couldn't get a single word out. "Hey, say something," she said, stomping her foot lightly. I took a deep breath, walked over to her, and dropped to one knee. I took her hand in mine. "Anya, will you marry me?" She blinked, then burst out laughing. "You idiot. We're already planning a wedding." "This is different," I said seriously. "I owe you a proper proposal." The boutique staff gathered around us, cooing. "Say yes. Say yes." Anya blushed and gave a small nod. "I will." I leaped to my feet and swept her up in my arms, spinning her around. "Careful. My dress," she yelped. I quickly set her down, but couldn't bring myself to let her go. "Anya." Before I could finish, a sales assistant discreetly handed me a small velvet box. "Your ring, sir." I had almost forgotten about my surprise. I took the box and opened it. A magnificent diamond ring sparkled under the lights. "This is..." Anya gasped. "I designed it myself," I said, a little proud. Anya threw her arms around my neck, her tears dampening my shirt. "You fool. I'll triple your allowance." We got married. The sun was shining on our wedding day, and the story of our marriage made the front page of a city's newspaper. Married life was even sweeter than I could have imagined. Every night, no matter how busy I was, we made sure to have dinner together. "Honey, try this," Anya said, placing a piece of pork rib in my bowl. I took a bite and immediately winced. "Wow, that's salty." "I made it," she announced proudly. I forced myself to swallow the salt bomb of a rib, putting on my best smile. "It's delicious. My wife is an amazing cook." Anya lifted her chin smugly. "Of course. I learned from a Michelin-starred chef." I quietly took a large gulp of water, making a mental note to send that poor chef a thank you gift for surviving my wife's cooking lessons. One weekend, the last people I ever wanted to see showed up outside our gated community. My parents and my brother Devin were standing at the entrance, yelling, "What do you mean we can't come in? My son is married to the richest man's daughter. He owns a house in here. You'd better let us in if you know what's good for you." The security guard called me, his voice full of apology and stress. A crowd of neighbors had already gathered, setting up lawn chairs to watch the drama unfold. I stood at my living room window, watching the security camera feed of the familiar yet alien faces. A cold smile touched my lips. Our wedding had been in the news. It was only a matter of time before the vultures smelled money and came circling. Anya came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist, resting her cheek against my back. Do you want me to handle this? I shook my head and turned to hold her. No, I'll do it. She looked up at me. Are you sure? Yeah. I kissed her forehead. Some things need to be finished once and for all. At the gate, my family was still causing a scene. My father was pointing a finger in the guard's face. Do you know who I am? My son lives here. Get him out here now. My mother was sitting on the pavement, wailing. This is a travesty. Our son gets rich and forgets his own parents. Devin was holding up his phone, live streaming. Hey everyone, check this out. This is the fancy neighborhood my ungrateful snake of a brother lives in. The three of them froze when I walked up to them. Leo, my mother cried, lunging at me. Mommy missed you so much. I sidestepped her, and she nearly fell flat on her face. My father's face darkened. You think you're too good for us now? You dare to push your own mother. I sneered. If you have something to say, say it. Don't put on a show. We're your parents. My father roared. Have you forgotten that? Devin shoved his phone in my face. Bro, Mom and Dad raised you. I slapped the phone out of his hand. Do that again, and I'm calling the cops. You. Devin's face turned red with anger. You think you're a big shot now? Don't forget who fed you and clothed you. Fed me and clothed me? I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You want me to tell everyone here exactly how you fed and clothed me? My mother started her wailing again. Was it easy for us to raise you? Now that you have money, you abandon us. The crowd of onlookers was growing, and people were starting to whisper. Raise me. I cut her off with a cold laugh. I left home at 18 and haven't taken a single penny from you since. So when you say raise me, are you talking about the 18 years you fed me scraps and tied me up and beat me? Is that the kind of raising you mean? I turned my glare on Devin. Or are you talking about how this lazy bum here barely got the scores for community college while I got into a state university and you tore up my acceptance letter? You made him the one who got an education while I was sent to a factory to pay for it. Is that how you raise me? My words hit them like a physical blow. My father's face went white, my mother's wailing stopped mid-sob, and Devin took a guilty step back. You're lying. My father sputtered, his face flushing with rage. When did we ever treat you badly? I stared at his red face and laughed. Dad, do you remember when I was 10? You hung me from a ceiling beam and beat me because I ate an extra bowl of rice. His pupils contracted. A low gasp rippled through the crowd of onlookers. My mother rushed forward, trying to cover my mouth. What nonsense are you spouting? That never happened. I dodged her easily. That night, I had a high fever. You told me to just put a wet towel on my head. You wouldn't buy me medicine because it was a waste of money. My father finally snapped. That's enough. You ungrateful brat. We raised you just so you could air our dirty laundry in public. Raise me. I shook my head. You raised Devin. I was just a family slave. I turned to the security guard. Please call the police. These people are trespassing and harassing a resident. The mention of the police sent my mother into a panic. Leo, you can't do this. We're your parents. My parents. I stopped and looked back at them one last time. The day you forced me to drop out of school and work for your precious Devin, our relationship was over. Get out of here, I said, my voice flat and cold. I turned and walked back into the complex. If you ever come back, I'll post every single thing you ever did to me online for the whole world to see. Behind me, I could hear my mother's hysterical screams. You heartless monster. You'll get what's coming to you. I didn't look back. By the time I got to my front door, my hands were still shaking. Anya was waiting for me. The moment she saw me, she flew into my arms. Is it over? I held her tight, breathing in the scent of her hair, and felt the trembling slowly subside. Yeah, for now. She looked up at me, her eyes shining. My husband is so strong. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. With you by my side, I'm not afraid of anything. Of course, it wasn't over. My parents and brother, desperate for a payday, went to the tabloids. They spun a tale of my heartless abandonment, painting me as a gold digger who used a woman to climb the social ladder. The tech millionaire abandons ailing parents went viral. The internet exploded with vitriol aimed at me. This guy is trash. Forgets where he came from the second he gets rich. I heard he used to be some kind of punk. Figures he'd latch onto a rich girl. A man who doesn't respect his parents deserves to lose everything. I sat in my office staring at the endless scroll of hateful comments on my screen, my fingers drumming a restless beat on the desk. Mr. Thompson, my assistant, opened the door cautiously. Mrs. Thompson said to tell you to please log off. I closed my laptop. Where is she? In the main conference room with the PR team. I nodded and walked down the hall. Through the glass wall, I could see Anya at the head of the table, looking serious and focused as she spoke with a team of sharp-suited professionals. She wore a crisp white blazer, her brow furrowed in concentration. I pushed the door open, and all eyes turned to me. How's it going? I asked, taking the seat beside Anya. She took my hand under the table. Don't worry, we're handling it. The head of PR pushed his glasses up. Mr. Thompson, the public sentiment is challenging. Your parents' story is very compelling to a certain audience. They're not my parents, I stated flatly. We cut ties a long time ago. Anya squeezed my hand. We've already found several of your old neighbors who are willing to give statements, and your high school guidance counselor. I shook my head. It won't matter. People will believe what they want to believe. A heavy silence fell over the room. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello. I answered. Leo, it's me. It was Devon's greasy voice. So, how does it feel to be the most hated man on the internet? I laughed coldly. What do you want? It's simple. Give us $50 million, and we'll go online and tell everyone it was all a big misunderstanding, he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. If not, well, you can just enjoy being infamous. I hung up. Anya looked at me, her expression full of concern. Who is that? Blackmail, I said calmly. They want $50 million. The PR director gasped. That's extortion. Call the police. Anya said without a moment's hesitation. I nodded and held up my phone. I've got the evidence. I recorded the entire call. I was originally going to ask my father-in-law to use his influence to squash the story, or even resort to more extreme measures. I never imagined my dear brother would be so stupid as to hand me the perfect solution on a silver platter. With police involvement, the situation turned around quickly. At the station, Devon broke down immediately and confessed everything. It turned out someone had put them up to it, the same business rival who had tried to smear Mr. Vance years ago. They gave us $500,000, Devon sobbed. They said all we had to do was ruin your reputation and make the Vance industry stock price drop. Once the police released the recording and Devon's confession, our PR team published the video testimonials from our witnesses. The tide of public opinion turned in an instant. My God, that family is pure evil. I feel so bad for Leo. To be abused his whole childhood and then blackmailed by them. Parents like that should be locked up forever. Anya and I stood outside the police station and watched as my parents and brother were led away in handcuffs. My mother was still screaming hysterically. Leo, you can't do this to us. We're your family. My father shot me a look of pure hatred. You snake. You'll pay for this. Devon was a blubbering mess. I'm sorry, bro, forgive me. I watched them go, my face a mask of indifference. I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. Anya squeezed my hand. It's over. I took a deep breath of the cold, clean air. Yeah, it's over. That night, after a long day at the factory, I came home to a quiet house. Then Anya's voice called out from the bedroom. Honey, dinner's on the stove, and I'm in the bed. Which one do you want to eat first? I paused. Then a slow grin spread across my face. Babe, I just got home. Give me a minute to at least catch my breath. Nope, no breaks for you, she purred. I decided I only want to do 4 things with you. Every breakfast, lunch, dinner, and you. After the storm passed, a flood of good news followed. Mr. Thompson, great news. My assistant's voice crackled with excitement over the phone. We just got an RFQ from Apple. They want us to bid on manufacturing the metal frames for the next generation iPhone. I sat bolt upright in bed, suddenly wide awake. What? Anya stirred beside me, rubbing her eyes. What's wrong? I hung up and pulled her into a hug. Honey, we got a request from Apple. Really? Her eyes flew open, all sleepiness gone. 100%. I kissed her excitedly. My assistant said their engineers have been auditing our facility secretly for 3 months, and they finally decided to move forward with us. Anya squealed with delight. Oh my God, you're going to be so rich. In that case, I have some good news for you too. I grinned. Babe, We're already rich, but go on. What's your good news? She handed me a small, gift-wrapped box with a mysterious smile. What's this? I asked, tearing it open. Inside was a tiny t-shirt that read, World's Best Dad. I stared at it for a second, then my eyes went wide. Are you saying? Anya blushed and nodded. Uh-huh. You're going to be a dad. I whooped with joy and lifted her into the air, spinning her around, before remembering and setting her down gently. Oh, sorry. I'm just so excited. She laughed and poked my forehead. You're a dork. I knelt and pressed my ear against her still flat stomach. Let me hear. It's only been 2 months. You can't hear anything, she said, exasperated but smiling. Leo, she said suddenly. Do you remember the first time we met? I smiled and kissed the top of her head. Of course I do. Some little princess ran away from home and almost froze to death in an alley. She playfully punched my arm. And whose fault was it that he sent me back? I was just worried about your parents, I said, taking her hand. I never imagined you'd end up being my wife. She leaned her head on my shoulder. You know that night at the club? Oliver Montgomery didn't just happen to be there. I looked at her, confused. I was looking for you, she said, her eyes sparkling. Ever since the day you sent me home, I never stopped looking for you. I was stunned. So that day, I arranged it, she said with a sly wink. I found out he had a grudge against you, so I made sure he'd be at that specific club on that specific night. I didn't know whether to laugh or be terrified. Wow, so my wife is a master manipulator? She lifted her chin proudly. Of course. How else was I supposed to trap you? She sighed dramatically. My plan was to swoop in and play the hero, but you ran off before I could get there with my backup. Her eyes softened. Good thing you couldn't get away for long. I cornered you eventually. I pulled her into a tight embrace. I'm so glad you did. From a neglected boy in a house full of hate to a man with a thriving business and a beautiful family, my life had been a long, hard road, but every single step was worth it because it led me to her, my runaway princess.